If you were happy hanging out with your family and your kids, and all of a sudden you're not that happy anymore doing that, that's a sign. One of the most common things that men come across is burnout. Unfortunately, one of the challenges is that we don't like to talk about burnout. We will actually avoid burnout. And that is very, very dangerous. Now, I like to remain optimistic and positive. That's the entire aspect of the work that we do, because optimism leads to positive performance and results. But this conversation I'm going to take from a very serious perspective, because I have seen men recover from burnout, and I have seen other men not be able to recover from burnout. And mainly for this particular reason. Their burnout is on a spectrum. You can have a light burnout, or you can have a significant burnout. You may be one of the lucky ones that is avoiding burnout at this moment, but you're getting very close. You're riding that edge to getting burned out. And so if you have let's just say a low, moderate, or a high level of burnout, you just have to be very careful. If you're low, you might be able to recover. If you have medium, you might be able to recover. But there's going to be consequences of that burnout. And those consequences may cause a huge challenge in your life. And if you have a high level of burnout, those consequences you may never be able to recover from. Again, I'm always about positivity and optimism, but I'm also a realist. And it's very important for you to understand that burnout is real, and that a lot of men are susceptible to burnout because we tend to avoid it. We tend not to talk about it because we have this concept of grit programmed into us, right? It's sheer willpower and grit that really gets us through. We got to push harder. We got to be tougher. We got to be able to put more power and energy into it. And therefore, we're going to be able to achieve our results. And if we are sacrificing and suffering, that's part of the journey. There's one important thing here, is that suffering should not be part of the journey. Sacrifice does happen at times, but the whole point of living is not to suffer. It's actually to be fulfilled, to live a fulfilling, happy, joyful life. And if you find yourself suffering, you are more likely to be burned out. Now, here are some signs that you need to pay attention to when it comes to burnout. These signs are very, very important. And there's many, many signs for burnout. But I need you to pay attention to this. These are just a few of the signs. And the reason why I'm sharing this with you is I want you to be aware. I want you to be aware if you're getting close to burnout, because if you get burned out, you may never be able to recover, as I talked about before. I've seen it. I've seen men have heart attacks, strokes, come up with chronic conditions like Crohn's or some kind of irritable bowel syndrome or diabetes. They just have not been able to fully recover. In fact, some of the men have been told by their doctor that if they continue to push themselves at a significant level, their life is at risk, which means that they can no longer be as involved in their business and challenge themselves, because if they get past a certain stress level, it could literally kill them. So you have to be aware of that. It's much, much, much easier to recover from burnout by not having burnout. And this is what ends up happening is we get so close. I call it hitting the brick wall. We get so close to this brick wall and we ride that edge, right? We're just like a millimeter away from that brick wall. And all it takes is something small or something even significant just to hit that brick wall. And once you hit that brick wall, the consequences could be 10 times greater than if you actually addressed the burnout in the first place. So if you are finding yourself with any of these signs, you need to take a look at this and take it very seriously. So the first one is if you are starting to feel irritable, if you are starting to get annoyed with certain things, if you're typically a patient person, but things are starting to bug you more than normal, or you're starting to snap at people, or you're starting to get moody, that may be a sign. The other thing is tired. If you're finding yourself tired, whether it's cognitively, emotionally, physically, or even spiritually, right? And we talk about 4 levels of energy when it comes to burnout. And that's essentially what burnout is that you are actually expending more energy than you're actually taking in. And so if you are tired, it's a sign that you are not bringing enough energy into your body, your system, your environment, into your soul. right? So if you're cognitively tired, you're not going to be able to think more effectively. If you're emotionally tired, you're going to be less motivated, less driven. If you're physically tired, again, you're going to be less motivated, less driven. You're going to be lethargic, right? You might actually start getting some health conditions as a result of that. And then there's spiritual, which just means that you may not have that complete fulfillment or feel like you have that purpose anymore. So it's important to pay attention to those 4 levels of energy and fatigue or tiredness when it comes to that. The other factor is sleep. Either you're sleeping a lot more than you normally do, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but that's a sign of your body or your brain telling you that you got to slow it down a little bit, or you're not sleeping enough. Right, you have sleepless nights. You're getting up in the middle of the night. You're not able to go back to sleep easily. So sleep is a big indicator of burnout. You got to pay attention to that, because high-performing men typically start to ignore that. Yeah, we'll get 4 hours of sleep and we'll continue on. I've heard men say, "Yeah, I'm working 70 hours, 80 hours a week," and it's like, well, when do you spend time with your family? When do you sleep? When do you have time for yourself? And typically, what ends up happening is that sleep is the one that is cheaped out on. Here's another sign, is if things that normally made you happy no longer make you happy. That is a big sign. So if you were happy hanging out with your family and your kids, and all of a sudden you're not that happy anymore doing that, that's a sign. If you're a big sports fan and sports doesn't make you happy anymore, watching sports doesn't make you happy anymore, that's a sign. So if things that you normally like and make you happy no longer make you happy, pay attention to that. The other factor is, or sign, is that if people around you are acting differently or different around you now, and some people may even have, you can say, the guts to actually come forward and say, "Hey, look, are you okay? Because you've been acting differently. Has something been going on in your life? Is there something that you want to talk about?" Or people may just straight up say, "Hey, look, you're getting moody. You're not as happy as you used to be. What's going on? You seem a lot more stressed." That could be a sign as well. Remember, one of the best ways of having reflection is from those individuals around you, because we can only see things from our perspective. We can't see things from other people's perspective, so we need to ask them. So proactively ask if they think that you're acting differently. There's other physical symptoms as well. Loss of appetite, for example. That's just one of them. Lack of sex drive for men. That could be another one. That is a big one for men. If you find yourself no longer being or having that sex drive that you used to, or getting to the point of erectile dysfunction, you definitely want to take a look at that, because that is a core part of being a man. You want to have a healthy sex life. Now I'm going to lay out one other thing as well, which is important for you to pay attention to. And this one's a tricky one, is if you have thought or you think about this concept of burnout and that you may be close to burnout yourself, or you're asking yourself, are you burned out? But you ignore it, that's a sign. That is a very clear sign for you to take a look at this seriously and actually say, do you have the symptoms of burnout? You can easily look them up. I've talked about some of them here. There's a lot more, as I mentioned before, because it could cost you a lot. Again, it's a lot easier to avoid the burnout and deal with it. Even if you are starting to get burned out, it's easy for you to overcome the initial stages of burnout if you actually pay attention to it. But again, we as men are very, very stubborn. We don't like to admit that we are feeling burned out. In fact, it is one of these things that we take pride in. Hey, I'm working myself to the ground. You know what? That's a sign that we are on a path to success. No, it's actually a sign that you're on a path to burning out and you may never recover. So pay attention to burnout. It happens more often than not. If you are thinking that you may be close to burning out or you might be burned out, I highly recommend that you reach out to a professional when it comes to burnout. It's important for you to do this. That could be a counselor, a coach, a psychotherapist, whoever it is in your life, a clinical psychologist. Reach out to those individuals, a doctor even, because getting help is the path to actually overcoming burnout. Don't be shy. Don't be afraid. Don't feel guilty or shame for thinking that you might have burnout. It's not a rite of passage. It's a fool's way of getting to success. It's not the smart way of getting to success. Again, you're not alone on this journey. You have other people that can help you. And the more help you get, the more successful you will be. Remember, the most successful men out there aren't the ones that do it on their own. They're the ones that have a team. They're the ones that actually acknowledge their challenges and potentially even problems and weaknesses and reach out to others for help. If you find that you are challenged with this, one of the things that we do as well is we do high performance training. It's what we actually call ultra performance training. It's a completely different level than high performance. It's a one step above. And we take into consideration how you can perform higher for a longer period of time without burning out. We actually have the research behind that, and we worked with many of our clients to help them do that. So if you are finding that you are wanting to perform better for a longer period of time and you want to avoid burnout, feel free to reach out to us as well. You can reach out to us just by emailing team@sanghaworldwide.com, and we will get back to you very soon. So simply pay attention to burnout, keep an eye out for the signs, and if you are thinking or getting close to that point of being burned out, please reach out to someone. It's only going to help you at the end of the day.